Aren't you bummed that we're missing the show?
I got a buddy in Chicago, and his friends are all like very like. He's not as much conservative. He's just more of like a. I told him it's going to be a clown show. Just the whole thing.
I mean, both sides are.
Yeah.
Granted.
It's
But this is like just hunker down.
the funny thing is, like, everyone's like, oh, everybody's so enthused. I'm like, I'm top of the ticket. I'm not enthused for any choice we have. You know, I'm like, this is the worst election of my life. You know, at least in 2016, like, I didn't really know what we were getting. And so either way, I was like, yeah, you know, but now I'm like, this is just
Okay, we'll come back to order with a roll call from our city clerk, Kathy Valdez.
The record shall reflect that all members are present.
Our city attorney, Walter Chung, will bring us out of closed session.
The City Council took no reportable action in closed session today.
Councilmember Green will lead us in the pledge tonight.
If you could please rise, remove your hats and hoods, put your hand over your heart. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Tomorrow is the 23rd anniversary of the day that our lives were forever changed as a result of the terrorist attacks against our nation. So let's take a moment to pause and pay tribute to those who lost their lives on that day and to the men and women who responded to the call of duty. We acknowledge those who are currently serving our city and our country, and we thank them for the great sacrifices that they make for each and every one of us every single day. So if you would, please join me in a moment of remembrance and silence for September 11th, 2001. Thank you. Now our city clerk, Kathy Valdez, has some procedural items to cover.
Thank you, Mayor. In accordance with the Brown Act, I'd like to announce that as a result of convening simultaneous meetings, the members of the Buena Sanitation District will receive compensation of $147.75 for the district meeting pursuant to Buena Sanitation District Ordinance 2006-1. I would like to remind everyone that the Vista Municipal Code requires members of the public to observe order and decorum at the meeting and to conduct themselves in a courteous manner. The ordinance was adopted to allow for public input and to facilitate city business without disruption of the meeting. Applause is appropriate for items listed under the presentation portion of the agenda only. Students wishing to receive credit for attending this evening's meeting must stay for a minimum of 1 hour. However, we ask that you stay for the duration of a conversation rather than leaving in the middle of a discussion. When you're ready to leave, you may ask one of the staff members at the back of the room to sign your paper. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, if you'd like to speak on an item on tonight's agenda, please fill out a speaker slip with the number of the item that you'd like to speak on and hand it to the clerk, secretary, staff here on the dais. Speaker slips are available on the table just outside the chamber doors. For members of the public participating via Zoom, please use the raise your hand feature to indicate that you'd like to speak, or press star 9 on your phone. We will announce when to raise your hand to indicate that you'd like to make a comment on the specific item being discussed. Speakers will have 3 minutes each to address the council this evening. And we'll go to City Manager John Conley for the approval of tonight's agenda.
Thank you, Mayor. No changes to this evening's agenda.
And now I'd like to invite the council to join me at the lectern for the first 3 of the 4 presentations that we have this evening. Our first presentation this evening is a letter of appreciation for Dick Miller Incorporated for being a red, white, and blue sponsor of our Independence Day celebration. Noah Trotter will be accepting this letter this evening. Is Noah with us? Come on down, Noah. Thank you. Thank you very much for being here. Appreciate it. Yes, sir. Give you this. So I really want to say thank you to Dick Miller, Inc. They've been longtime sponsors of our Independence Day celebration, and the truth is we really couldn't do it without our sponsors. So thank you for helping us honor our nation on Independence Day. The certificate of appreciation reads, Dick Miller Incorporated, red, white, and blue sponsor. I and the members of the Vista City Council present this certificate of appreciation and recognition of Dick Miller Incorporated being a red, white, and blue sponsor, and for your generous support of the City of Vista's Independence Day celebration dated September 10th, 2024. Thank you again. Our second presentation this evening is a letter of appreciation for Michael Hutton and Gerald Chido. Where is Gerald? Is he here? From Restore Church. Michael, are you here? Well, that's all right. I think we all know Gerald. We know him as Big G. He's made a big impact in our community by being an active member. So we want to give them this letter of appreciation and Restore Church. On behalf of the City of Vista, we extend our deepest gratitude for your exceptional selflessness, volunteer service, and providing invaluable infrastructure additions to the Buena Creek Navigation Center. Your dedication enhances service delivery by providing safer and more accessible access for our clients and staff, ensuring they can navigate the Buena Creek Navigation Center property with ease and dignity. Your generosity embodies the spirit of community and enriches the lives of those in need. Your support plays a critical role in ensuring the well-being and dignity of those who are affected by homelessness in our community as they navigate their way back to housing. And we are profoundly grateful for your partnership and commitment in serving those in need. Let's give them a round of applause. And next, we have a proclamation declaring September 12, 2024 as Moonlight Studios Day in the City of Vista. And tonight we have Executive Director Jennifer Bradford here to accept this award. Let you show this off for us. So our proclamation reads, whereas on August 10th, 2024, the Moonlight Cultural Foundation celebrated Moonlight Studios' grand opening with an official ribbon cutting, studio tours, and the observance of dance and voice lessons. In 2022, the Moonlight Cultural Foundation Board of Directors began looking for a property to serve as a studio for Moonlight Youth Theater, who had outgrown the small studio that the foundation was leasing. Whereas it was clear that this new property could also serve as the Moonlight Stage Productions, who had a need for a larger space and more consistent rehearsal space. For the last 40 years, Moonlight Stage Productions has been finding a space where they could hold rehearsals. And with that goal in mind, the Moonlight Cultural Foundation Board located the property at 825 Civic Center Drive and closed escrow in October of 23. The property has since been renovated into rooms that not only host rehearsals for stage productions and youth theater, but also that allow the foundation to offer weekly classes in dance, voice, acting, technical theater for both emerging and established theater markets. And whereas Moonlight Studios is an intergenerational space that has arts enrichment opportunities for children and adults, it is dedicated to cultivating a passion for theater, developing applicable skills, inspiring future generations of artists by offering quality performing arts education and pre-professional training opportunities to North County San Diego students of all ages and skill levels in a safe, fun, and welcoming environment. Now, therefore, I and the members of the Vista City Council do hereby proclaim Thursday, September 12, 2024, to be Moonlight Studios Day and celebrate over 4 decades of serving the City of Vista and our surrounding communities, and recognize the vital role that Moonlight Stage Productions continues to play in bringing quality professional theater to audiences here in our city. You want to say a few words?
That was
All right.
I think you covered
I
it.
said it all. Just stand right here.
I thought you were ready for a speech.
Is Big G here? Yeah. Oh, yes. Come on up. Is Michael here? All right.
Sorry for being late. We literally had, there's literally a hierarchy in the world, and then his daughter's birthday party. Oh, I'm sorry.
Good evening, everyone. So I want to take the opportunity to thank the mayor, city council, and everybody with all the work you guys do every day. I want to say a little bit about homelessness so that people can know what's happening out there. I became homeless, and I didn't expect it to be. But people think homelessness. What is homelessness? Homelessness is associated with drug addicts, alcoholics, mental illness, and other things that people unfortunately may come across or unfortunately get homeless. But I don't have any of those things. I'm an engineer, qualified, worked for over 25 years, did well, but I'm homeless here in California. And so my thing to you guys is, when you see a homeless person, just one day stop and say hi. How you doing? How's your day? It goes a long way because you don't know what's going with them, but being homeless is something that's also mental, and people think they're throwaways. They're just people like us, just like me. So I've dedicated my life to speak out for those people. And now I'm in ministry, and God is calling me to engineer other things. And so I make a call to you, and the mayor knows this, and I think all the city council people know this. Right now I'm at Greenwood Ranch, and I was praying that Vista City buys that place. There might be a chance, by the way, still. Because now another organization is going to take that place, and they're going to make about 30, 40 families homeless because they say when they come, they want them out. And this is supposed to be a homeless organization helping the homeless, and yet it's going to make 30 families homeless. So I don't understand it. But anyway, thank you so much for your time. When you see a homeless person, if you can just help out by just saying hi, it'll make a big difference. And any one of us can be homeless. It takes 30 minutes, you can be homeless. And imagine if that was you being treated like that. But I know Vista City and the mayor and the leadership has a different objective on homelessness. This is why we're here, because they're doing something about helping those that are less fortunate in that area of having a home. So, thank you so much.
I think it goes without saying, because Gerald made a good point, that we're going to have our housing navigation staff and our outreach personnel from the city of Vista go and visit with those families at Green Oak Ranch who are going to be losing their housing potentially or definitely. And I know that this council, all of us, are committed to making sure that every one of those people finds a transition into housing that's suitable for them. So we're going to make that a big priority, and we'll report back on that. Okay, we have one more presentation from the San Diego County Sheriff's Office about the Rise Above program, which will be given by Lieutenant Mark Carpenter. Welcome, Lieutenant. And Captain John Boyce.
Thank you. So I'm just here. So once again, my name's Matt Carpenter. I'm the patrol lieutenant at the Vista Station. Thanks for having me. We're starting a new program, a new youth program between, our students going to be between the ages of 9 years old and 12 years old. We want to help our youth. Unfortunately, some of our youth throughout this country are being targeted at a young age. So we want to target and help these kids before they become victims or get into certain crimes. So a little bit about Rise Above. We're going to use the Linda Rhodes Rec Center. This is currently the location we use for our junior deputy program on North Santa Fe. This is a perfect location for this program because there's plenty of room to play soccer, play football with these kids. This program is going to involve a lot of classroom education, but also physical fitness with the deputies so they can bridge that gap with our youth. We don't want the youth to look at law enforcement as just enforcement. We want them to know we're here to help them. So we're going to be doing outdoor activities with the youth, also indoors, and there's going to be some classrooms that the Vista Academy of Visual and Performing Arts is going to give us some classrooms. So some partners that are going to help us out with this, Chick-fil-A, City of Vista, the school, Star Pal, True Care, Vista Community Clinic, and North Coastal Prevention Coalition. There's also tons of other people who want to help out for this program. So let's get into it. It's going to be an 8-week-long program. What sets this kind of apart from the other programs that are out there nationwide is the fact that we actually have our youth with their guardian or their parent attend this program. So not only is the youth being educated by us, it's also their parent or their guardian that's also learning. So it's 8 weeks long. We're going to go into each single one. We won't go into the weeds of each one, but just kind of an overview. So for week 1, we have an introduction with the kids. There's going to be some icebreakers with the kids so they get to know each other. Dr. Villarreal, do you guys all know her by chance? I mean, she's awesome. She has a great following with our Spanish-speaking community in North County. She's actually going to be talking with the parents day 1 to let them know some resources and also what the expectations are when it comes to this 8-week-long program. So once again, we're going to be using physical fitness, soccer, playing games with the kids, but also having them learn. Week 2, we're going to have our gang enforcement team talk to the parents and also to the kids about the dangers of gang violence. And also, a lot of times, parents don't know what to look for when it comes to some of the stuff that's happening out on our streets. Week 3 is going to be True Care, Wellness. This can be more physical wellness where they can actually come out. They're going to learn about hygiene, nutrition. And then that goes into week 4, which is mental health. We're going to have our PERT clinician come and talk to the families, let them know what the resources are. One thing I need to bring up is the fact is that each one of these weeks, except for week 5, which I'll talk about, is there's a lesson plan made specially for a 9-year-old, for a 10-year-old. That same lesson plan will be taught to the parent or the guardian, but obviously for an adult. You know, we're not going to teach an adult something that a 9-year-old would want to listen to and vice versa. Otherwise, we'd lose them. So physical, mental well-being, and then week 5 is going to be a little bit of a break just for the kids. No parents. We're going to be playing football, soccer with them, have a pizza party. Food will be provided for both parents and the students for each week that we have these courses. Week 6, we're going to learn about drugs, alcohol, and tobacco. That's going to be taught by some local community-based organizations. The kids love it. We do it for the junior deputy program, but we bring our narcotics canine out. They get to see them actually find some real narcotics that we check out. Parents love it too, so it's pretty cool to see the way our canine unit works. And then week 7 is our Respect Project. I think you all heard about Respect program. It's in San Marcos. Some of our Vista teens have actually attended this program, but it's going to be, the parents get to get introduced to it so they can actually see that when they get to high school, they can go to this Respect program. At least for the City of Vista and the Vista Sheriff's Station, we want there to be a program for elementary, middle school, and high school kids. That way they can have positive interactions with law enforcement their entire youth. And then last, we're going to have a graduation with the San Marcos location. The City of San Marcos is also having a similar program, and it's our goal to actually have both programs merged together to have a joint graduation. Are there any questions or comments about this program or anything I didn't cover?
Well, thank you very much. Let's see, we have Councilmember Contreras.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the presentation and working towards building more community And I just have a few questions. So is this similar to the Respect program, or?
It is similar, but we're focusing on more youth, like such a young age at 9
I see.
to 12. But what's really interesting about it is the fact that the parents or the guardian is going to be involved. So they're going to have to be there all the weeks except for, I believe it's week 5 was the fun week for the kids. But yeah, so it is similar to Respect, but more like education for the parents too. Because a lot of these parents, they don't know what they can and can't do for discipline, or they've had at wits' ends with their kids not knowing what to do. So we can actually give them additional resources and options.
Okay, and so will there be partnerships with other organizations like North County Lifeline? Can you kind of paint a picture for me?
Yeah, so I worked with North County Lifeline when I was the juvenile service sergeant and ran Respect program. So we are going to look at additional community-based organizations and partnerships with them. So we want to continue to grow this. As of right now, I believe it's the Vista Community Clinic, North County Prevention Coalition. Those are the ones that, and then Vista True Care, I believe it is the current people that are helping us right now. But we are definitely going to look at, with North County Lifeline, I believe we actually have to enter into a contract. So that's something we can actually look at and expand.
Okay. Yeah, and one of the things that is important from the city side, in my perspective, is that we have allocated, a significant amount of funds for scholarships and whatnot. I want to make sure, and even our e-bike incentive program, are we as a city going to be, having information there available for because this is a great opportunity where you have our youth and the families, so that way they can maybe see options that they didn't have before. So their kids can play sports if there's, financial barrier, or if they're looking, to get an e-bike, to get an incentive, and, free training. So is the city going to be providing any educational information, like flyers or anything like that we can do in conjunction with the sheriff's department?
So we need to meet with the captain and the lieutenant and go through all of our available programs, but we'll definitely do that before this program starts.
Fantastic. And if we could just ensure that everything is bilingual, that would be great. Last question is, where is the funding from this program coming from? Is it from the sheriff's budget?
So great question. We are getting some funding from the city of Vista, and then also for the food, for example, that we're going to be feeding the families and the students for each week. Some of it's going to come out of the deputy's pocket because we want to help out and we love giving back, but also we do have some private funding from the Honorary Deputy Sheriff's Association that has a grant that they were gifted, and that's what we're getting some of that money from.
Okay, so the funding, I was curious because we had set aside $130,000 for the Linda Rhodes facility to have different nonprofits that want to hold after-school programs for youth at no cost. Is the money from the city coming from that program?
No, we have money set aside separately for special sheriff's department programs that we're using for this particular program.
Fantastic.
It's not a lot for the city in terms of costs.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, just really curious to see, how that's getting bundled together. And I know it takes a lot of work on your end to figure out how you're going to put a program like this together. So I do appreciate all the work that went into it, and I really look forward to seeing some of these positive outcomes. Especially, I think you really touched upon a really important point, which is parents want to know more about signs that they should be aware of, that their children are maybe on the wrong path or whatever the case might be. So this is a really early prevention system, taking into account some of our younger youth. So just thank you for the thoughtfulness, to you and the captain. This is something that I know I've wanted to see for a long time. So I'm glad that we're able to put all the pieces together, and thanks. That's it from me.
Thank you.
Councilmember O'Donnell.
I don't have any questions. I remember when the Respect program was presented to us, and I really appreciate the work that our deputies are doing in our city time and time again, trying to reinvest and engage in our communities. So I really appreciate that. And I just want to echo the comments that Councilmember Contreras made, that we should have that information available for our youth, any programs or grants that we have available. But thank you to yourself and all of our deputies for the work that you're doing with our youth. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Councilmember Green.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Lieutenant Carpenter, for the presentation. Love it. And also, thanks for activating that Linda Rhodes Center. I think as a council, that's what, Councilmember Contreras was saying is, hey, is this another way that we're activating the Linda Rhodes Center? And on top of programming it with funding, it's good to know that there's some private-public partnerships that are bringing good things to the city as well. I grew up on East Los Angeles Street right over there, and my only interactions with sheriff's deputies were the 3 times we got robbed before we moved. So it's super cool to be able to have a sheriff's deputy kind of mentor somebody in that community and bridge that gap where you're not only seeing people on their worst day, but you can really form community relationships. So that's great. One real question that I had, and this is important because you said the canine dogs come.
Right.
Do the parents get to wear the intruder uniform and the canines attack them?
Captain, what do you think? No, absolutely not.
Goodness.
At a lieutenant level, I can answer that. No, that's way too, that could be
I just wanted to know, what's the best day to go spectate as the council?
Actually,
and I figured if there was a canine attack
kids,
day.
if you guys need extra credit, if you want to show up on that day, we'll put a suit on you guys. No, I'm joking.
Good. No.
So
okay, well,
that's-
thank you so much. Really appreciate all that you're doing in our community, Mr. Carpenter.
Absolutely.
And I would just echo all those comments also. Appreciate the Sheriff's Department spending time outreaching to children and to all of the parts of our community. Very valuable, and look forward to attending some of these sessions and seeing the happy kids and parents. We've had great results with the junior deputy program, and I'm sure we will with this one too. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And big shout out to the Honorary Deputy Sheriff's Association. That's a great organization of excellent citizens that are supporting all the work that you do and really helping build community. So we thank them.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's it. Perfect.
Okay, so the next step in our agenda is oral communications. Any member of the public may address the City Council on agency-related matters that are not on the agenda by requesting to speak during this section of the agenda. If you're participating via Zoom, you can use the raise your hand feature by pressing *9 now. If you'd like to speak, the number of speakers heard during this segment will be limited to 10. Any remaining speakers will be heard under the second oral communications item. And it looks like we have 2 or 3 commenters, and we'll start with Becky Rapp on Zoom. Becky, are you there?
Yes, good evening, Mayor Franklin and council members. My name is Becky Rapp. I'm a public health educator concerned regarding the permitted marijuana products sold in our city. First of all, I wanted to thank the County Sheriff's Office for offering the Rise Above program. What a great way to reach youth at a younger age, starting at 9, teaching them as well as their parents about the true dangers of drug and alcohol addiction, along with mental health challenges that are tied to drug use. With September being Suicide Prevention Month, we are reminded that marijuana products contain high-potency THC, changing the structure of the brain and interfering with decision-making. Our own San Diego County Medical Examiner stated that 39% of completed suicides under the age of 25 tested positive for THC. Dr. Kevin Sabet, former White House drug policy advisor to President Obama, Bush, and Clinton, stated the DEA and the FDA have held long-standing opinions that marijuana is a dangerous psychoactive drug, with science only becoming more damning. Major medical associations and surgeons general agree marijuana is addictive and harmful. Study after study of users of today's high-potency THC products demonstrate damaging mental health impacts, including psychosis, schizophrenia, depression, and IQ loss. It is my hope that the Rise Above program will touch on these concerning facts, and that the city will also take responsibility in helping to educate our young people. Thank you.
Next, we'll go to Megan Stewart on Zoom.
Hi, thank you. Good evening, Mayor Franklin and members of the council. My name is Megan Stewart, and I would also like to thank the Sheriff's Department for introducing the Rise Above program to serve and empower our youth, who are facing a huge number of challenges these days. E-cigarettes have become the most common form of tobacco use among young people, despite widespread efforts to curb their use. Along with that, youth vaping has increased marijuana use. Recent data shows that more than 1/5 of high school seniors have reported vaping marijuana in the last year. At the same time, one of the ingredients present in many marijuana vapes has been linked to a wave of illness and deaths impacting people of all ages across the US. Vape companies market their products with colorful packaging and sweet flavors, creating a false sense of safety among teens. This is not harmless, as nicotine addiction affects brain development and increases the likelihood of future substance use. In our schools, vaping has become both a health and discipline issue. Many students are turning to vaping to manage stress, only to find that it worsens their mental health. They are more likely to report symptoms of anxiety and depression. The state has taken an important step by enacting the flavor ban, but enforcement is key to its success. Without strict oversight, these harmful products will continue to reach our kids. We must ensure that these products are not making their way into the hands of our children through lax oversight or illegal sales. Vape companies will continue to exploit any loophole they can find to hook the next generation of users. At the end of the day, this is about protecting the future of our youth. They are up against a multi-billion-dollar industry that thrives on their addiction, and it's our responsibility to stand in their defense. Thank you so much for your time and attention.
Now we'll go to Madison on Zoom.
Hello, City Council members. Thank you for the chance to speak and to share some information in a similar vein to the previous two speakers. This is information from Jim Knox, who is the California Managing Director for the American Cancer Society Cancer Action Network. He said, nearly 30 years ago, California boldly forged the path to protect everyone from the dangers of secondhand smoke when it became the first state in the nation to prohibit smoking in almost every indoor public space. As Americans are now using marijuana at higher rates than cigarettes and alcohol, California has the opportunity to reaffirm its role as a champion for public health. To do so, it must build upon smoke-free policies, not weaken them. Smoke-free laws are popular because they work. They have played a pivotal role in slashing smoking rates and bringing overall tobacco use to historically low levels. We cannot jeopardize the progress we've made in creating safe, smoke-free environments and reducing tobacco-related health disparities by making exceptions to well-established laws in the name of the marijuana industry's interests. The marijuana industry tried to sell the idea that normalizing pot was inevitable, that people would accept it and have a positive view of it. But the truth is, eventually everyone will have a negative interaction with pot or know someone who does. What is inevitable is that people will recognize the harms and wish it was no longer so common and easy to access. Just like big tobacco, the marijuana industry will be known as a failed experiment and a public health travesty. Thank you for the chance to speak.
Thank you, and that will close the opportunity for public comment during this and oral communications during this meeting of the City Council. Next, we'll come to our consent calendar. The recommendations on the consent calendar will be enacted in one motion unless an item is removed from the calendar. Any member of the public may remove an item by submitting a request to speak card to the clerk secretary or by using the raise their hand feature on Zoom or by pressing *9. Items removed from the consent calendar will be considered immediately following the adoption of the calendar. We have 3 consent items this evening. Deputy Mayor Melendez.
I move to approve the consent calendar.
Councilmember Contreras.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Seeing no discussion, please cast your votes. That'll bring us to public hearing number 1 tonight. This is a nuisance and abatement hearing for 1248 South Santa Fe Avenue and the adjacent vacant property. And while our staff is taking their seat, I'll just say that I asked for this public hearing because I am tired of property owners that do not live in our city who do not take care of their property. And right here on Civic Center, we see some properties with temporary fences that have not been maintained correctly. And something I've asked the city manager to work on a policy to come back to us is making people, or limiting the amount of time you can have a temporary construction fence to the actual time that that you're actually actively working on a permit, on a building permit, and then forcing people that are not taking care of their properties to actually take care of them with public hearings like this, and by aggressively fining those property owners who refuse to be good neighbors. And this property owner, I want to be on record as saying, has drawn my personal ire for the way that they've maintained their very visible property. And we have issued a number of fines, I believe about $15,000 worth. And they, as of today, did some cleanup work. So our public hearing got their attention apparently. Although, you know, I half expect to see the black and red school bus and the old RV back tomorrow. They obviously got the word that we were not happy and finally got motivated. So at this time, let me welcome Clarence Rich, our Director of Code Enforcement, and Joshua Sino Cruz, Assistant to the City Manager, to give us a little report on this.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and members of the City Council. Tonight I'm joined alongside Clarence Rich, our Code Enforcement Manager, and we're going to present on the nuisance abatement hearing for the properties located at 1248 South Santa Fe Avenue and the adjacent vacant lot. So the properties are located at and near 1248 South Santa Fe Avenue. Assessors parcel numbers 180-164-3100 and 3200 as shown on the slide. The main parcel is approximately 1.15 acres, while the adjoining lot is about 0.77 acres, totaling about 1.92 acres. These properties were previously brought before the council for a public nuisance hearing on August 22, 2023, which was continued to the September 12, 2023 meeting. And at that time, the hearing was closed as the property manager had addressed the public nuisance issues. Next slide. However, since November 2023, repeat violations have occurred, including junk, trash, debris, graffiti, and illegal RVs and trailers on site. These violations have resulted in 15 administrative citations amounting to about $15,000. Next slide. So here are some of the photographs of some of these violations that our code enforcement team encountered and documented. Multiple inspections were conducted, and the condition of the properties were determined to constitute a public nuisance due to unsightly and inadequate property maintenance. Next slide. So as of this morning, the block wall tagged numerous times with graffiti has been painted over, and all the trash and debris has been removed from the property. Next slide. The last remaining issue was the parking of a minibus on the property. However, we confirmed that this afternoon it was removed. So a notice of public hearing was posted on the property in advance of tonight's meeting, and the property owner and manager were contacted as well. If a resolution is adopted declaring the property as a public nuisance, the property owner will be directed to abate the nuisance within 30 days. Should they fail to comply, the city manager will be authorized to take further action, including reporting the cost of the abatement. And finally, while staff initially recommended that the council declare 1248 South Santa Fe Avenue and the adjacent vacant lot as a public nuisance, all issues have since then been resolved. So this concludes our presentation, and staff is available to answer any questions or discuss further.
My question for the city attorney is, do we have a lawful right to declare a nuisance as one has existed and persisted? And do we have a right to demand with this action that the property owner continues to keep their property in this good standing? And would we have the ability to abate? Because the problem is, you know, and I just want to make clear to the property owner, I hope they're watching, $15,000 worth of fines. If I didn't have to bring it to a public hearing, then I'd be the first one to advocate for them if they had done what was asked. I'd be the first one to say, let's be lenient. Let's not write them a bunch of fines. If they're working with us, if when we ask that they take care of their property, they clean it up, then I'd be the first one to be lenient and want to be their friend. But these people, I don't think that they deserve, I don't have any idea who they are. I don't know their names or where they're located, but I am tired of seeing this property in this condition. I am very personally angry about it because I'm angry because our code enforcement officers are being disrespected. When they go out and they issue citations and property owners, have they paid any of those fines?
No, they haven't. It's gone into collections, and after collections, if it doesn't get collected there, it goes on their property tax.
This owner is disrespectful of the people of our city. They're not disrespecting our code officers and our council. They're disrespecting the citizens of this city that have to live here and see this mess that they're allowing. Councilmember Green.
Thank you, Mayor. Is there actually an open project and permit on this parcel right now?
No, there was entitlement granted maybe 10 years ago that's since expired.
Okay, so there's no project on it. And do we have any policy or code that has any type of like limitations on, I mean, is there, if there's temporary fencing up or anything like that? Like is there anything in our code that says, hey, you can't do this aside from what we're using to enforce right now?
No, they can fence the site for protective purposes. They have chosen not to do that so far, so that's something that we're working with them on. Otherwise, we're promoting their development of the property.
Okay, sounds good. And let me see, what does this say? And are we allowed to put any type of requirements, or do we have requirements within our code for them to maintain their property? So like, hey, if your weeds get over 18 inches and they're dry and it's fire season.
So that's what we're here for tonight. We've noticed them and fined them, and
Constantly.
according to those requirements, they failed to comply. This is the next step.
I get that. So unfortunately, what I heard, and I'm wondering from Walter what the option is the recommendation was to conduct and close a public hearing, saying this is a public nuisance, but they've already abated. If the power was to force them to abate within 30 days, it's, why would what does declaring it a public nuisance even do, is my question.
So if all the problems have been abated, legally, no, you couldn't declare it a public nuisance because you have to find facts in your resolution supporting the declaration of a public nuisance. So unfortunately, we can't make a carpet, or the council can't make a carpet declaration going into the future that it could be a public nuisance.
But can we say, since they're not paying their fines and respecting the city, that it's a nuisance that's a nuisance to my staff and the public? I don't know.
It would be a nuisance of a different type, but there's nothing under this code section that's being brought that we could abate. So this section would allow the city to give the owner 30, if it was declared a public nuisance, the owners would have 30 days to clean up the property, and if not, the city could force abate it.
But what you're saying is that there's no reason for us to, because they've already abated at this point. And we don't even have the grounds to declare it a public nuisance because there's no active infraction or, problem with our current code, correct?
Correct. And what we could do is just be quicker. If there is another return problem, we would
Bring it forward and declare it a public nuisance sooner. Okay. Yeah. So, at this point in time, I would recommend that we close the public hearing and move forward with not declaring it a public nuisance and making sure staff stays on top of it.
So the fact that they have allowed a public nuisance to exist for the last year, you're saying that's not sufficient legal grounds for the public nuisance?
Correct, because the public nuisance, there's nothing for us to force abate in 30 days.
I understand. I'll take your advice on that. Councilmember O'Donnell.
So I'm looking at this and I'm just seeing, it's probably a question for the city attorney. I see 9 days, 21 days, 20 days, 12 days, 15, 18, and so on down the line. Is there anything that's preventing us from going out there more often to levy fines against them for not abating the property?
No. Well, we have to give them a sufficient amount of time to try to abate it, but with this history, I think we could be...
Yeah, I guess that would be my next question. Once they've been cited, after a 2-week period, if they're continuing to not fix the issue, is that not sufficient time to where we can go out there more frequently and levy additional fines until the property is abated?
Yes, we could.
So that would be my recommendation to ensure that this doesn't happen again, because I have received numerous complaints about this particular property, not just from business owners, but from residents as well. And I agree with the mayor that it's completely unacceptable, and I appreciate the work that you all are doing for code enforcement, because I know it's not an easy task to try and get this done. So I mean that very sincerely. Thank you for doing this and bringing it forward. I'm going to second Councilmember Green's motion to close the public hearing and not declare it a public nuisance, but I would definitely recommend that we fine more often if this continues to happen.
Councilmember Contreras.
Yeah, I mean, the amount of fines is unacceptable. It's a lot of work for us to continue following up. So my question is on the amount. Is this the 1,000 the maximum per
Yes.
citation?
So once they reach the max, 1,000 is the max, so any subsequent citation on the same problem will be $1,000.
I think, that doesn't even cover the cost of staff at this point. When was the last time that we updated the amount of citation? Has that increased with inflation?
It has not. I can't give you the exact date, but it's been a long time.
I think we need to bring it back. I think that this 15,000 should easily be $30,000. This $1,000 is just not enough, and obviously, it's just the cost of doing business for them, and it doesn't hurt their wallet if they're just willing to continue to have the citation go. So, we just need to update it. So I look forward to that conversation in the future, and this is a warning to this property, but any other property that is a public nuisance for any amount of time, you may be subject in the future after a future council discussion to a higher fine, and I definitely want to be able to cover staff's time. I mean, you all had to go out. I'm sure you don't have a drone out there just watching it, right? So you have to go out early in the morning when the sun's rising, have someone else check right before the council meeting. I mean, this is just, we need to recover more costs. But thank you for all the diligent work. I just want to see this citation be much more than what I'm seeing right now.
So I couldn't agree more. I believe the California state law limits $1,000 is the maximum that we can impose for forfeiture.
That is my recollection, but I haven't up.
Yeah, I just looked, and the California code limits it. But what I would say is, let's ask you to research that and verify, and then also let's put on the agenda a resolution encouraging the state legislature to increase that amount, and we can begin the effort of getting our legislators to look, because that number hasn't gone up since I've been on this council. And certainly $1,000 isn't what it used to be. So yeah, I completely agree with that. And I understand that we legally can't, but I hope we've gotten this property owner's attention. What about, do we have to wait till our end of the year when we do our hearings and we put all these fines? Some of these fines are over a year old, and they've crossed multiple years, 23 and 24. When will we put this on the tax roll?
Normally, the staff brings them in June. And so all uncollected fines then get put on the tax rolls. They get forwarded to the county to be placed on the tax rolls.
Okay, and so are all these fines within that period? Can you go back to the list of fines?
Two slides.
They are all, okay. So that's coming up, that we're going to put all these. All right, good. So I just want the community to know that we're getting our money, whether they pay us or not. It'll go on their property tax rolls, and we will collect our fines. So there is no getting out of paying the city these fines. And I just want to reiterate to the community that I think we have a wonderful code enforcement department. They're professional and they're lenient. They ask. I always talk to Mr. Rich and I say, you ask people first, with kindness, fix the violation. We always give people an opportunity without fining them to fix it. But then when they refuse to come into compliance, they leave us no choice. And some of these properties are really bringing the community down. So I really want to get aggressive with these properties that are being ignored. Somebody's thought they had an investment, now they don't, and then they just leave it to rot. Councilmember Contreras.
Just one other question. If we do have a ceiling on the amount, are we able to just do it on a daily basis, $1,000?
Yes.
Okay. Well, perfect. We found a solution. I look forward to that discussion. I mean, I think once you get to a certain amount, I don't know what that amount is of citations. We'll probably talk about that at the next time that we review this item. But let's just do it on the daily. We have to check up on it anyways, almost daily. So, okay, cool. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And I agree with that 100%. Okay, that'll bring us to the first discussion item this evening. Did I skip something? We need a vote on the motion to close the public hearing. Sorry about that, I got ahead of myself. We have a motion, a second. Please cast your votes. That item is approved unanimously. Thank you to our staff for the good work on that. And this will bring us to the first of two discussion items this evening. The first is regarding the two Vista Conservancy properties. Any members of the public wishing to speak on this item may indicate so by using the raise your hand feature, by pressing *9, or submitting a request to speak card here at the dais. Speakers will be called upon after the presentation. Our Community Development Director, Joe Vaca, will introduce this item.
Thank you, Mayor Franklin and members of the City Council. The Vista Conservancy is a nonprofit organization that was established in the late 90s, and they were anticipating working with local landowners and the City of Vista and community with the goal of developing a creek walk trail along the Buena Vista Creek to connect Brangle Terrace to the downtown. The first segment of the trail was developed along an adjacent subdivision off Bel Air Drive, and it included the dedication of assessor parcel number 176-370-46 to the Conservancy. It's approximately 3 acres, and I'll show you that property in a subsequent slide. Then a few years later, the second property, APN 176-310-05, was acquired and dedicated to the Conservancy by another adjacent prior owner. So this is the first property acquired in 2000, and it's approximately 3 acres, and it includes a walking and biking trail. This is the property off Vale Terrace that's approximately 3/4 of an acre that was acquired in 2003. So both sites are currently with the land use designation of the larger property as open space with the general plan land use, and then the opposite 3/4 acre site is high density residential. And if the city accepts these sites with our general plan update, we would recommend that the council direct staff to designate both sites as open space. So the Conservancy notified us that they anticipate dissolving and that their organization has lacked funding in the recent years with economic changes. And they request that the city accept these two properties. Staff does anticipate there would be an initial cost of approximately $30,000 to fence and secure the larger property from the public right-of-way, with an anticipated annual maintenance of both properties going forward at $15,000. And staff recommends that the City Council does accept these properties and that they contribute to the overall natural open space for the community and preserve that portion of the Buena Vista Creek Trail. And this is an exhibit showing both properties with an aerial image, and that concludes the presentation.
Thank you. And Brooks and Mike are here and available to answer questions if the council has any questions for them. We'll go to Deputy Mayor Melendez.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for this presentation. I appreciate this opportunity for the city to acquire these trails that are well-loved, well-utilized. They connect two of our major parks, and we do have some portions of this trail already under our control. And you know, it's sad to hear that that the Conservancy group wasn't able to continue this task, but the care that has been put into these trails and the curation that has been put into these trails up until this point has been really special. And it's such a wonderful space that has been created by the community and for the community. So I see every reason that we as a city should take them on and acquire them. So I would move that we do that. And thank you for all of the work that you have done. And hopefully we are able to continue to steward these lands. Thank you.
Councilmember Green.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for bringing this forward, Joe, and thank you to the Vista Conservancy peeps over there, Brooks and Mike. I know I've seen a lot of our North Coast Church kids. The JH78 crew has been out there every year doing work for you guys. I know it's a lot, and I'm excited that to take that off of your hands and make it an asset for the city again, I think is going to be pretty awesome. One question that I had for you, Joe, and I hope you can answer it, is if we accept this and we designate it as open space, does it tie our hands as a council to, maybe reimagine a use for this area if we wanted to make it like a reading park or a pump track or something like that with the other properties we own in the area? Would a future council have the ability to use it as park space, or is it stuck as just open space?
No, they would have the ability to repurpose it for park space, and they could always change that designation if it was a limitation.
Would it require a change in our general plan, or the way that our general plan is done, it'd just be something a council could decide?
I think it could be something the council decides.
Okay, without like a general plan amendment. I just know anytime we change our general plan, everybody gets mad at us. So I'm like, hey, if we're requiring it as a certain use, let's make sure it's a use we can use when we're taking it. So no, I think that's great. And once again, to the residents that have volunteered, and not just the two of you, but I know that you guys probably got a crew of 15 to 20 people who have really, been boots on the ground for decades over here. And that trail's definitely been a commodity to our community over here. So thanks again for all of your work. And I second what Deputy Mayor said, is I definitely approve the purchase or the reacquisition of this, and I look forward to it being a great commodity for the community.
Councilmember Contreras.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with folding this into the city, and I really want to thank all the folks that just have worked so hard to maintain such a well-loved public space. I do have a question. Who owns the parcel? I know one of them's Vista Community Clinic, but the one right to the left of 1763100500?
It's a local dentist that owns that property.
Okay. Yeah, and the other comment that I have is there's been a few extensions to the trail system. One of the things that I'm curious to see is if there could be some kind of, because we have the public right-of-way right next to this other parcel, the 17631 parcel. I think that area right there would be really nice if you could also have that as a trail area, like maybe DG. I don't think it's like that right now. And the reason that I say is that, when people walk their dogs, sometimes it's good to have different routes that people can avoid other dogs that maybe don't behave as well. So you can't legitimately walk because it's not improved. So anyways, I just want to throw that out, that along the street side on Vale Terrace, it would be great to have an additional portion of the trail that could do like another loop, See what I'm talking about?
Got it. Yeah, as a matter of fact, we are working right now with the clinic on their property on affordable housing, and we've asked them to consider putting a trail connection in from Williamston over the creek to the existing trail. So we're working on that connection.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah, I think this is a great opportunity for us to enhance our trail system and definitely try and connect this, in the future, have a whole network of trails in the city of Vista that are urban to wildlife. I think it would be great. Awesome. Cool. Well, that's it from me. Thanks.
And talking about how we might use this land in the future, this is riparian habitat, so it's pretty protected, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So, just for my edification, what kind of limits would that place? Obviously we have a trail in there now we want to maintain the use of, but
you could put potentially some benches, softscape that doesn't necessarily require any footings.
Yeah. So maybe a little bit of improvement of the current use, but it's pretty difficult to use this land for. Now, has this land already been set aside for mitigation? Do we get any benefit of this land? Can we use this for mitigation at all, or?
It's a good question. I don't know the answer to that.
That's okay. We can figure that out later.
I would just say one of the sites, the larger 3-acre sites, already open space. The smaller sites designated high density, and that's inappropriate. So we would want to make sure that we update the general plan for open space on that lot.
Makes sense. Councilmember Green.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. I just want to say that I definitely support what Councilmember Contreras is saying right there. We really don't have any way to walk on that side of Vale Terrace. And if you are going to be connecting the trail at Williamston over there, it'd be great to put a little DG walkway. And I would even go further to say it's just a couple hundred yards with no sidewalk, and then the sidewalk goes all the way to Vista Way. So there's not a whole lot of sidewalks in District 2 because it is rural and there's a lot of right-of-way restrictions. Having the right-of-way right there as a city and owning that parcel really would allow a much better walkable, even bikeable community over there. So when the council of the future reviews this and looks at how they could possibly have the highest, best use out of it, I think making it more traversable in that area would be really, really good. So thank you for bringing that forward, Councilmember Contreras.
Councilmember Contreras.
Yeah, and I was just mulling over, Mayor, what you were talking about, mitigation land. I think, this has come up in different ways when we're talking about open space. And for future, I think in October, we're going to be looking at our cap. Could we potentially look at, open space and mitigation? I mean, this is such a small amount that I think the mitigation would be negligible. However, every little bit counts.
So we don't currently have a policy in our cap that addresses mitigation land or open space as a separate item.
I hear another agenda
But we
item.
can do that. We can bring it back and discuss the areas that are within it. And actually, we're probably going to do that as part of the general plan update because we'll cover the open space area.
Fantastic. And, I would love to see any other gaps that we have when it comes to open space and mitigation that we, definitely want to get credit for, if there's any grant opportunities like the Smart Growth Initiative, things like that. If it's not in the cap, you won't get money for it. So we've done a ton of amazing things that we would not qualify for grants. But in the future, if we can just put that in our cap, we would be able to qualify for a lot more funding. So anyways, I look forward to that discussion as well. Thanks.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes. That item is adopted unanimously. That'll bring us to our final discussion item this evening regarding the year-end cannabis review policy. If there are any members of the public that wish to speak on this item, they may indicate so by using the raise their hand feature, by pressing *9, or submitting a request to speak card. Speakers will be called upon after the presentation. Councilmember Contreras asked for this item to be on the agenda, so we'll ask her to introduce it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I don't have too much to say right off the bat. I just, I know that I've heard several council members, including Deputy Mayor Melendez, want to look at, structuring how we use our cannabis sales tax revenue. So I'm thankful that for my council to constantly be asking questions. I think this is a great opportunity for us to outline some kind of strategic way that has a little bit more of a structure for our staff to understand how the council wants to utilize the sales tax. I know Councilmember Green has submitted something for the record, and I'm really appreciative to him for it, but I'll just open it up to the council and see who wants to talk about this, and maybe, we can get some good direction.
Well, thank you for bringing this item forward. I wanted to offer a thought first, which is, as you know, it's been a long priority of mine since before I was first elected in 2014 to this body to increase the number of deputy sheriffs serving our city. We are the single busiest sheriff station in the county, and I believe that our deputies' morale would benefit from having a few more deputies to help alleviate some of the work burden. And we are significantly behind a lot of our neighboring cities in the number of deputies that serve each 1,000 citizens, which is one of the ways that we look at, and measure how we have the ratio of sworn officers per 1,000. And so I'd like to make a motion. We have $2.451 million that is currently unprogrammed, which I confirmed with our city manager. And I'd like to see the council use 18% of that money for 2 new deputy sheriff positions. Those positions to be filled by the sheriff's captain and assigned to whichever component of his department here in Vista that he thinks that they would be most useful. But I would really like to bring, and again, have been working at this now for more than a decade, to bring our policing levels. In the last 22 years, we've hired 30 new firefighter positions. We've authorized 30 new firefighter positions, but we've only been able to add about 4 deputy sheriff positions because we haven't had agreement of the council. But now we have the money. We have the money. Clearly, we have the money. And I think the community members agree that there would be widespread benefit. So I'd like to offer a motion. I look forward to hearing from Councilman Green on his policy, but I would like to offer for the consideration of the council a motion that we use. It's $230,000 roughly ongoing. It's $275,000 for the first year, but it's $230,000 ongoing. So I'd like to see $460,000 set aside on an ongoing basis for 2 more deputy sheriffs here in Vista. Councilmember Green.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate that. I didn't hear the answer to the question that you asked, though. You said that we had $2.4 million that was unprogrammed from funds. Do we have 2.4 program that's unprogrammed, Mr. City Manager?
So we have a budgeted line item for cannabis revenue of $6.5 million. That's what we're expecting to bring in this fiscal year. We typically set aside $4 million, $4.5 million roughly for the positions and the fixed costs. So we have about $2 million that we typically bring forward.
So you're saying, so what the mayor is saying is you'd like to use the funds that we typically use right now for a general fund, keep those there, and then all the remaining funds used to add new sheriff's deputies?
No, I'm saying the council has agreed to allocate $4 million. Basically, I would classify it as the first $4 million of our recurring annual revenues for cannabis to these things that require ongoing expenditures every year. What I'm saying is right now we have basically $2.5 million that we have not programmed for future years. And so what I'm saying is I'd like to program another $430,000 of that on an ongoing basis. That would still leave us $2 million of unprogrammed funds that the council could spend on whatever individual initiatives the council might have. But this would just program just a little bit more of it. And I just want to give the council the opportunity to support our deputy sheriffs and recognize the need for more deputy sheriff positions here in Vista to support the work that they're doing, so that we finally got to the end of forced overtime. Our deputies want to spend more time with their families. They don't want to be made to work overtime shifts. The more deputies that we have here, the better we can control that problem in Vista. I think the better we can improve the morale. I don't want our deputies to constantly have 2 and 3 emergency calls behind the one that they're on. I want them to be able to address the call that they're on and really have the time to proactively police. And very important, I want them to have the opportunity to really forge relationships with the citizens that they are serving, and for those citizens to really feel that our deputies do in fact love them and care about the community. And I think, one of the things, if your doctor comes in and he only spends 2 minutes with you, maybe you don't realize your doctor really does care about you. And I'm sure your doctor wishes he had 7 or 8 or 10 minutes to spend with you, but our deputies are the same. We need to give them the time to spend with our citizens to build that rapport in our community. and we need to give them the time to make sure that they're well-rested and that they have high morale.
Thank you. So I still have the floor. I was just.
Sorry about that.
No problem. I just was wondering, so what you're asking is for us to change the allocation to our general fund from $4,466,000 to 4,466,222 plus 229,222. So yours is, so now you'd like our base to be 4.924 instead of 4.446. Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure that I understood your thing. I actually presented something to the council to look at as far as a breakdown of what I think a good framework for policy would be with the cannabis money. And before I get started, I just want to make sure that the high school students know you were here for an hour. And if you do need to leave, you are welcome to leave now. I will take a break from flapping my lips so you can leave because this may take another hour. However, if you'd like to stay, stay. Okay, I will continue speaking because nobody stood up unless you're standing up now. Thank you. All right. Yeah, see that? I just figured if they're going to go, I'd rather them go now than in the middle of my thing. So if staff, you could be out there to sign them off, that'd be great.
We're going to ask the students to go ahead and move into the lobby, and staff will come out and sign your papers.
I figured they'd figure out what time it was right in the middle of me speaking, so they can go now.
That's fine. Please do not have conversation in the chamber. Please take your conversations outside of the chamber, where you're welcome to continue talking as long as you like and as loud as you like. But we'll send staff out there to sign your papers, but please let us continue our meeting. Students, please take your conversations outside.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, so first I just want to give a huge thanks to Councilmember Karina Contreras for bringing this item forward. I feel that as the council that has overseen the legislation of retail cannabis and the focused impacts on our city over the last 4 years, it only makes sense that we come up with a policy that can guide future councils on the most efficient and effective way to allocate these funds for our community. Staff was nice enough to provide us with a lot of data and information on cannabis revenue that was generated and how it's been allocated in the past. And after reviewing our cannabis revenue since the implementation of Measure Z in 2019 and the opening of our retail cannabis businesses in 2020, we do have a great history of contributing a large percentage of this revenue back to our community. Aside from 2020 and 2021, which were our first full years of cannabis revenue generated, we've averaged an allocation of 33.96% of our gross cannabis revenue towards special projects. So to make a policy that makes sense and line up with our current budgetary needs, I propose the following initial cannabis revenue policy be adopted by this council. Now, prior to your motion, Mayor, was when I wrote this all up, so I have it allocated as percentages, and as I'm done with these percentages, I'll address your motion as well. Currently, we allocate $4,466,396 towards our general fund. This is the original policy that was formed with the council at a discussion of a base of $4 million, and then we added 3 other positions, a deputy sheriff and 2 park rangers. So the last time we went over this discussion, we did add another deputy and 2 park rangers. That $4.4 million basically balances our general fund and allows those 3 positions to continue in perpetuity basically forever if the council in the future keeps that program. So those funds are required in order for our city to do the business of the city and maintain our budget. So my proposal is that with the 100% of funds, we allocate 65% of total cannabis revenue towards our general fund with a floor contribution of $4,466,396. This means if our cannabis revenue dips below about $6.5 million where it is right now, we may have to allocate funds from our surplus spending at the end of the year in order to balance the budget, because we know 4.466 has to be allocated for what we have right now. The other 15% I'd like to allocate towards Vista Youth allocated towards Vista's youth for sports, music, arts, and educational scholarships. 50% of these funds are to be allocated through the City of Vista's City Clerk's Department in conjunction with the City of Vista's Parks and Rec Department for sports, music, and art programs, supplies, and scholarships. The other 50%, which we've been speaking about with the council lately, should be allocated towards educational scholarships. In lieu of the city taking responsibility, I propose that these funds are allocated or budgeted to the city's CDBG Commission to be contributed to local scholarship programs benefiting Vista Unified School District students at the discretion of the CDBG Commission. These scholarships will be awarded on a 2-year cycle, just as CDBG funds are awarded to local nonprofits through the CDBG program. To give you an idea, if we allocated 15% of our revenue towards these scholarship programs, this year it would be over $950,000 that would be able to be allocated towards scholarships for sport programs, music, arts, and then the other 50% could go towards education. With the CDBG Commission, which are appointed by the council allocating those funds, it relieves the city of all liability. There's no special interest that can get involved, and they can allocate those funds to scholarship programs throughout our city that already have a proven track record of giving back to the community. So I know the Rising Stars one, Bill De La Fuentes is one. I know that the Moonlight just came today, and we're talking about scholarships they need. But there's a lot of scholarship programs that are already established through our nonprofits that our CDBG can vet and allocate the funding that way. I like the 2-year allocation because just as when we donate to our nonprofits, we need to make sure that these scholarship recipients know that we're going to continue the funding for 2 years so they can plan their budgets. The other 20%, I think, is kind of where I feel like the mayor's recommendation comes into mind. Over the years, we've had about 20% extra of total cannabis revenue, and that I want to be allocated towards year-end fund balance, surplus spending, to be allocated to a majority vote of the city council. We do this every year already. We have a surplus spending and we also have excess revenue, but it is a majority vote of the city council how those funds are allocated, less any funds needed to make up the floor shortage of $4.466 million. So I wanted to make sure that I had a policy structured for our funds that added up to 100 because there's 100% of funds. So I like 65% going into our general fund. It keeps those positions that we as a council already added. The 15% for scholarships I think is great because it sends a message. And this is a policy that other cities can adopt and really say, hey, this is a great way to make sure your community is actually benefiting from these funds. And then the 20% are for special projects. Traffic calming, we've had some speed humps, we've had some roundabouts. Street lighting, we allocated $770,000 towards street lights. And if you guys get a chance to look at the agenda, I'm hoping this is on here. Over the past 4 years, the city of Vista has allocated $7 million to these special projects and scholarships. And it gives me chills to say, because additionally, when this came forward to the council, they thought it was gonna be more negative impacts than anything. The focused impacts we've seen here in the community are not negative. There hasn't been an increase in usage. There hasn't been an increase in crime. There's been an increase in sheriff's deputies. There's been an increase in park rangers. There's been an increase in community lighting. So to have an actual structure that future councils can use as a framework, I think is great. Because as a council, we have no framework. We just say, hey, our base is 4.4 and everything else we'll talk about at the end of the year. So to have an actual structure, I think is good. I do support allocating funding. I would say one more officer would be okay personally. But those funds have to come from the 20% at the end of the year, unless my council would be willing to change the base contribution, which we've had for all these years. And I think it's really tough. But I do feel like we're going to be making those funds. The only problem that I have is that we would have to change this number from 65 to 70 and this number from 20 to 15. So I would like to hear from my council, figure it out, and go from there on how we will vote on adding more deputies, because I think it is definitely something we need to do. It looks like we have the money, but it could also be something that's done with the surplus spending and the future council's responsibility. So ready to hear it. Let's go.
Deputy Mayor Melendez.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councilmember Green, for bringing this recommendation forward. I think that it's great. I think that this is brilliant. We're able to continue to fund what we've already allocated. And I think that this is modest enough to consider that the cannabis market isn't going to be prosperous in Vista forever. We are one of the few cities that allows for the cannabis retail that we do have. And this is not a long-term reliable funding source, especially as other cities are coming on board and they want to, have the revenues from cannabis in their cities. right? So these revenues are not guaranteed. I don't have in front of me a 10-year forecast, a 15-year forecast of what these revenues are going to look like. And for that reason, I'm extremely hesitant to increase personnel costs with cannabis revenues because we do not know if this is going to be reliable or if it will cause a shortfall in another area. Another reason why I'm concerned about addressing additional personnel during this discussion is because we have directed our sheriff's captain to come back with data and information about what is actually needed. And as much as I understand that there is an interest for hiring more personnel in every single department, during recent years, one of the decisions that I was able to participate in making in this council was to hire 12 new EMTs to our fire department. And that decision didn't just come out of, my own interest in hiring those personnel and my own interest in improving morale in the fire department, but it actually came from data that was presented by the union members who took their own personal time and they paid their union dues to bring us the data and advocate for their department, advocate for themselves to showcase what the best practices are. And I don't know, is Captain Boyce still in the house? I would love an update on this. I see him come through. Thank you, Captain. As you know, and as our council knows, we have had discussions about increased personnel to our sheriff's contracts before, and we have previously allocated personnel via this in-certain fund with our cannabis revenue. But during recent discussions, I know that our council has requested from our sheriff's department a little bit more information about what is needed in terms of personnel. And I'm asking you now because this is something I would do for any department or any need in the city, whether it's our fire department, whether it's public works, whether it's our sheriff's contract with our San Diego County Sheriff's Department. I want to hear what the need is.
Sure. And just so you know, like the overall data, I'm working on that with the city manager. I already presented him some. He kicked them back to me because he wants to make sure you guys get all the answers that you guys are looking for. Right now, I mean, I've been waiting for you guys to call me up here because I see a need for at least one deputy sheriff like today would benefit the community as a whole, and that's in our traffic division. And it has to do with our DUI enforcement in the city. There's clearly a huge problem here in this city. I mean, it's most cities. But for example, in 2023, we had 284 DUI arrests. That's what we arrested. That is not, I mean, who knows how many are out there? And 162 crashes related to DUIs. So that was 2023. This year, we're looking, if we keep going at the rate we're going, we'll be above that. We're at 200 DUI arrests this year so far, and 111 DUI-related crashes, and that's here in the city of Vista. So you talk about an impact, a positive impact, because the goal would be if our DUI arrest goes up, those crashes will be diminished. And some of those crashes are critical, injuries or even deaths, unfortunately. To me, that is one of the biggest needs that I've seen after being here almost 2 years. What that would do, right now our traffic deputies, we have a lot of collisions. That ties up our traffic deputies' time. And so DUI enforcement is when they have free time. What I would do as a captain would, similar to the city of Carlsbad, they have a officer designated just for DUI enforcement. And that officer is regularly recognized by Mothers Against Drunk Drivers with his awards because he's so high. And I feel like we have several deputies here in our traffic division that are waiting for this day, that we would have a designated DUI enforcement deputy.
Thank you, Captain, for sharing that update. This is definitely new information from our previous discussions. And I absolutely support what you're asking for. I think being able to offer specialized forces for really specific problems that we can fix, and we know how to target the issue, and we can go out and correct the issue when someone is causing a danger on our streets because they're under the influence and they get behind a vehicle and they're going to destroy someone's life as well as their own. I think that that's very powerful. And we don't have this position currently in the city of Vista, do we?
Correct.
Okay. And tell me a little bit more about the operations for this type of position. When would they operate? Obviously, I'm thinking Friday night, 11 p.m.
Yeah.
We need someone on the road to be catching drunk drivers.
We would pull the statistics to show when the majority of our DUI-related crashes are, and that's probably where our force would be. And you're right, it'd probably be Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays, because of football season, unfortunately. We see an uptick on that. It would be strategic, like how we target it.
I'll also say, I appreciate the update here in this informal conversation, but I do like to have a more structured discussion when it comes to ongoing personnel costs, right? I want to make sure that we're not trading one thing for the other, right? If you later come back to us and let us know that you need 10 more deputies, right? Is it even necessary for us to have hired that deputy that focuses on DUIs, right? So being able to have all the information in front of us at one time, I think, is going to be helpful. And I appreciate that you and the city manager are working on that, because that's going to help us make a decision for the long run. Because I do think that we need to evaluate our public safety. We need to evaluate the need of sworn officers on our streets and make sure that we are providing adequate service to our community. But my threshold for information is high for any department that is requesting more personnel, because the needs are so great throughout the entire community. And what you're describing with the DUI program, that really strikes me, because I know that it's not a service that we're currently offering, and that truly could save lives. And also support the interests that the mayor was speaking of boosting the morale, right, of our traffic deputies who want to be able to survey and respond to DUIs, but they are caught up in the number of other traffic collisions that they're dealing with. So I appreciate that information. I don't know if it's something I can make a decision about tonight, because I want to be able to see the information as a whole. And if you and the city manager are working on it, then I'm confident it'll come back before our council and we'll be able to make a decision about what we're going to really need going forward. And so I appreciate you sharing that. I'm sure my other colleagues will have questions. But I did want to just finish my comments to say, I do believe that a certain amount of the cannabis revenues should go to youth development. And I do believe a good amount of the surplus cannabis revenues, as they are surplus at this time, right? They might not be surplus forever. I do believe that a certain portion of those surplus funds should go to one-time projects, because if we're experiencing prosperity now, and we have a little bit of funding flexibility now in these years, are there improvements that we could make that will support our community's infrastructure needs for generations, right? Those sidewalk projects that are extremely difficult to fund. The other traffic calming and neighborhood enhancements that can be difficult to fund. So because we do have surplus at this time, I'm hesitant to use too much of that surplus on resources that are ongoing. And I'm curious to know what other people's sentiments are. I would support what Councilmember Green has put forth already, and there's no reason why we can't change it. As our sheriff's captain comes back to us with fully fleshed out information about what the personnel needs are, I'm absolutely ready to make a decision about that. But for me, there's no reason to make a decision about that tonight when we can create a modest framework for cannabis revenues today and then continue to have a discussion about personnel in the future. So that's where I'm at. Thank you, Councilmember Green. Thank you, Councilmember Contreras. I know you, and both of you individually, have contributed so much to the cannabis conversation in our city. because there has been a stigma. There's been a stigma around cannabis, and now all the other cities are wising up, and they're saying, well, forget the stigma. We know that it's going to be prosperous for our community to allow for these revenues, and now we're using these funds to serve the community in the best way possible. So thank you.
Councilmember O'Donnell.
Thank you. Captain Boyce, thank you for that information. If I could just ask you a real quick question. So first, that is the exact information that we are looking for when we're talking about trying to add more deputies, and that's very critical and useful to have, so I really do appreciate it. In the past, we've talked about hiring a deputy for like a special thing, like the Rise Above program or other activities within the community. Is there still a need for that? So if we were to hire, say, 2 additional deputies, would there be room for those programs and then as well as another traffic deputy?
So, yes. With our cops deputy, so our cops deputies, which falls under the SPO, Special Purpose Officer, would be our community oriented policing deputies or our gang enforcement team. They're considered the same. So we are asking more from our cops unit currently, especially with these juvenile programs. Now we're going to have the Rise Above, the junior deputy program. And so the more we ask of them, on top of that, they're doing tobacco enforcement, marijuana enforcement. They're dealing with the unhoused encampments out there. And so we're spreading them thin. They're doing their best they can with the numbers they got. I think we have 7 currently in our cops team and 6 in our gang enforcement team. So I'll never say no to an additional cops deputy. We also, obviously, we have this youth gang prevention program because we have a problem in our city. And so another gang enforcement deputy, I would not say no to that either. Bang for your buck, this DUI, the numbers I'm presenting to you, I think it's one of the best things we can do for this community to reduce DUI-related collisions in our city. I don't know the last time we added to our traffic unit. I think the city could do some research to figure that out, but when I was a cops deputy here in this city, that's when we had the explosion of our breweries. I'd like to think no one's going to drive drunk, but unfortunately they do. They make that poor decision. Vista we saw an explosion here. So you had that. Now we have dispensaries. Unfortunately, it is impaired driving when you smoke marijuana. And so, and that could increase our numbers. We could have increased numbers from our breweries and our regular restaurants and liquor stores, and now we have our dispensaries. So I definitely see a need for our DUI enforcement. And to me, if I had the choice, that'd be my first choice.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I'd like to give you both because I know I appreciate the work that's going on, especially with the youth programs. And I mean this very sincerely. The work that you and your deputies have done. Like I was there Saturday at the career fair. I've been at multiple exercises you've all done, especially you all, our fire department. You guys do a tremendous amount of work to try and be active and engaged in the community, and it's very much noticed. And so if we could, I'd like to give you 2 deputies per the mayor's request. I do not want to do it out of the cannabis funds. So I'd like to bring this back if we could at a different time to find funding for it, because my concern, and that's all for it right now. My concern is also that as we have cities like San Marcos and Escondido and all the surrounding collar cities to us, that this funding revenue and funding source will go down. And if we have to find other ways to patch up that funding, that's why I'd be hesitant to do it here. But I would be supportive. So I'm not going to second your motion. I'm actually going to provide a substitute motion to approve the percentages that Councilmember Green has submitted to us. But do want to bring back the discussion over deputies because I think that it would be imperative, especially with the information you're providing. But I would also like to see that information before we make that decision so we can actually have it with the numbers in front of us. So that's where I would be at with this right now. So I appreciate the work that both Councilmembers Green and Contreras did on this. It is tremendous, and I think you see the benefit that this has provided to our city over the last 6-7 years or whatever it's been. But I've also, I support it because I've talked to a lot of our deputies, and I know that You know, I get it, the overtime has gone away or the mandatory overtime, but it is a morale thing. You know, there's tangible things such as crimes and call service and all the other things, but there's mental health, there's, you know, being overextended, not seeing your families. And so there's a lot of different things that go into that, but I do think that if we're going to allocate $500,000 to something, we should have more information in front of us to do it. So that would be my substitute motion, but I'm supportive, just not with this funding source.
For the record, there is not a second on the floor, so your motion is not a substitute. It is a competing motion.
I will make a competing motion then with you.
Councilmember Contreras.
Yes, thank you so much, Captain Boyce. Actually, this is the first time that we ever get information, and it's been years and years that we've been pressing, so I really appreciate you working with our city manager. This is something that I've asked for. I just want to know, where is the need? Because we could just think of all these different needs, and they could be needs, but on the scale of priority, you bringing forward something that we have never, ever, ever discussed about this issue with DUIs, and the fact that we don't have a position, a deputy that's able to really dig in to the serious issue of DUIs. And, you know, I see it all the time. I see these crashes. People are zooming through red lights, swerving. You know, I want folks to feel a lot safer. And, you know, I really, really sincerely appreciate that you've been looking at what makes the most sense, because I'm just with the information that you presented, I'm 100% in support of that. When this information comes forward, and when do we anticipate that this will come forward in a complete report?
It's unscheduled. I'll have to get back to you all as soon as I have the information from the captain.
Okay, yeah, and you know, to add to the report, I think, you know, having a DUI crash map would be really important. You know, certainly having a deputy is going to be a critical component. However, for a long-term situation, resolution to some of the issues, potentially, depending on what this crash map shows, like we may need to do a long-term infrastructure intervention in some of these areas. You know, traffic calming makes it a lot easier for our deputies to not be on our traffic division, to not be tied up with all these collisions. So the more that we can create a holistic public safety environment for not only our deputies, but people who walk, bike, drive here in Vista, that will make the force that we have much more effective and efficient. And we should always be looking, regardless of the title of the personnel that we're hiring, we should always be striving for efficiency and effectiveness. So yeah, I think we have to take a look at the long-term infrastructure, and maybe there's something there, maybe not. I'll go ahead and second the motion. I really appreciate Councilmember Green bringing this forward. Is very thoughtful. And it is incredible what we're able to do to show other cities an example of real leadership and how we use cannabis sales tax revenue. It's, you know, folks out there are just shocked at what we're doing. And we are leading the charge on how to responsibly utilize the public's sales tax fund, right? So also I have one quick question, Captain Boyce, and it regards, it's in regards to staffing shortages with the Sheriff's Department. I know, you know, representing NCTD, we haven't been able to fill all the deputies in our contracts. So if we were, say today, we were like, hey, we want to get you this DUI deputy, do we have someone that would immediately be able to take that position on, or are we still struggling with some of the staffing?
It's a constant struggle, but like adding a traffic deputy, it wouldn't be a hard lift. So there would be somebody to fill that spot. Obviously, we we already have an idea of our top performers here in the city. So we would probably just move them up and then fill their vacancy with a traffic deputy who's handling collisions and, everything else they encounter. So
Fantastic. Okay, I just wanted to make sure because it sounds like for a future discussion, when we have all this information in front of us, we can make, have a good discussion and make a good recommendation. I just want to know that we're going to be able to fill that position as quickly as possible.
if you're talking about 1 or 2 positions, not an issue. If it was 30, that's a different
I
story.
don't think I have enough money for 30. But I really sincerely appreciate everything, and you work so well with our community. So it's such a blessing to have you in the captain position. But yeah, I definitely look forward to hearing more about our needs. And this is something that we've never talked about. But anyways, fantastic. I've seconded the motion, and that's it from me.
I would second what Councilmember Contreras said. We are very fortunate to have you as a captain. You've done a great job and very innovative, and I appreciate you bringing this great suggestion. 167 crashes. How many fatalities did we have out of it? Do we know? Yeah, but certainly that'd be something we could do to save lives in our community. Thinking back to our very first traffic circle, Captain wasn't with us in Vista at the time, but it's a 4-foot tall circular deck on the very first traffic circle. And like the first week it was open, a drunk driver managed to put his car on top of the pedestal. And we all looked at the photograph with just total wonder, like, how did he do that? He was going very fast and did not turn, decided to try and drive through the pediment. I have a question about Councilmember Green asked the city manager, the previous city manager, to include funding for park rangers. And staff has had a very strong disposition against park rangers that appear to be law enforcement officers. And I have to say that I agree, because they are not armed and are not, post-certified law enforcement officers. It'd be unfair to put them in a position where they appear to be law enforcement and have any kind of an issue based on that, where like maybe, they don't have the ability to defend themselves. But that being said, this council allocated $200,000. Now, I know we did give some pay increases, and we did put park ranger on the side of their car, and we gave them some little bit better uniforms. They still don't have that snappy campaign hat that the state park rangers have. Man, the state park rangers look really good. But here's my question. In all fairness to the council, we really didn't get, we had how many park directors? Did we only have 2 park directors before? And did we make that 4? How many park directors / park rangers do we have now?
Pacheco's going to come answer that for you.
What I really want to know, I want a straight answer on this, Mr. Conley, because we really didn't get our park rangers. So did we just move money out of the general fund? Did we move an obligation out of the general fund into the cannabis money? How many park rangers do we have?
We have 4.
We have 4. And so 2 of those positions were new positions. Okay, so we have additional people in the parks based on the cannabis spending.
Correct. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, those 2.
That's all I wanted to get a straight answer on. I appreciate that very much.
No problem.
Thank you.
Sir.
Okay. Well, seeing that there might be agreement for a single deputy, and Councilmember O'Donnell, I hear what you're saying. Yeah, this money's going to go away eventually. We have 12 firefighters funded by temporary money through Measure L, Prop L rather, Measure L. And that money goes away when the temporary sales tax goes away. But the plan always was that we would absorb that expenditure into our general fund at that time. But in the interim, we would fund that with Measure L money. So this wouldn't be the first position that we funded with monies that we knew in the future would be less or maybe wouldn't be there at all. So hearing, and again, this is why I don't ever propose where the captain might assign somebody, because it's the captain's job to know where the need is the greatest. But because we do have a motion and a second on the floor, what I would do then is offer a motion in the nature of a substitute where we would encapsulate Councilmember Green's suggestions here, but where we would move, I think the number would be about 2.5%. So it'd be up to like 67.5%. And Councilmember Green, if you would second that, then I would leave it to you where you want to take that 2.5% from. But that would fund our DUI deputy. And then if 4 or 5 or 10 years from now, a future council, probably none of us will even be here. I know I probably won't. If you have to deal with that 10 years from now, I'm sure you'll figure it out. I think we've got plenty of money to do it, but we've heard a need identified, and also it strikes me that Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday evenings are probably our busiest calls for service hours. And if we had an extra deputy working specifically for DUI, if, God forbid, he was necessary to respond to an emergency, he'd be available in the city with a car and a weapon and all that, and he could come do his job and support his fellow officers. It seems like it's always that last part of the week when we see 6 cruisers going at 80 miles an hour with their lights on, rushing towards some kind of emergency. So I think that would be a really excellent time to have an additional officer on duty in the city. I think that makes a lot of sense. So, Councilmember Green, I'll throw it back to you, and I hope you would join me in seconding that substitute motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think the maker of the motion has to accept your amendment to his substitute motion at the end of the day, but I will say that I do feel that the majority of the council understands we need one more sheriff's deputy as a DUI deputy that we have an issue for. I just don't see the need to change my number allocation. So $4.466 million, we've only designated $466,000 of that. And as a council, we throw $4 million back in the general fund and say, hey, staff, spend how you want. I would propose that we keep my percentages exactly the same, we keep the floor exactly the same, and that the only change that we make is this $4.66 million is to cover an additional 2 park rangers and 2 sheriff's deputies from that revenue in perpetuity. And my question would then go to the city manager and say, hey, if I kept my percentages exactly the same, and I just changed the verbiage of this 1% to say 2 sheriff's deputies and 2 park rangers, that way, this council would be able to say, hey, in perpetuity, we're adding extra. Would you be able to still balance my budget one way or another? Because I know we never go to 100% of salaries used in budgets with that allocation, because we don't have any other stipulation of how we're allocating the 4.4 mil. So could I keep it the same and just add a deputy with all my numbers?
You're doing the same thing either way. I mean, I have to find the money for the deputy.
I get it, but I'm just saying, as a symbolic gesture more than anything, okay, is just saying, hey, out of this cannabis revenue, we allocate 65% of it towards our general fund. Out of that 65%, our council guarantees that funds at least these 2 deputies and 2 park rangers on top of normal stuff. Just so that we can, it's a good statement to our community as well. It doesn't change our money, but it's more of a symbolic statement. I know you're gonna have to find it, but if I did that, would that
Yeah, what I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to identify your cost for sheriff's deputies and 2 park rangers, and then the $4 million is going to get dropped down to a lower number so that we can show that it comes out of this budget.
So you're going to have $3.7 million towards the rest of the general.
That's the
but
idea.
It's still going to be the same number of 4.466.
Right. But
that's all I'm saying is,
just so you know, also though, the cost for a sheriff's deputy is more than $200.
It's $350 to start, and then you get the
It's
recurring.
actually a little more than that because those didn't include administrative costs, but we can do it.
Okay, so the answer is yes, you can.
It's a cost to us in addition to what our normal operating budget is, but yes, can we afford it? I believe we can.
Okay, and that was my question is, I'm not in favor of changing the percentages because I like round numbers, but I do feel like if the maker of the motion is okay with changing it to 2 deputies and 2 park rangers, I would support that. If he's not okay with that, then when it's brought back later, well, that's it. That's where I would be okay with. I just don't want to change. I don't want to say that we have to allocate 4.695 mil every year. I'm fine with what we already know we can allocate and put it on staff to fund the position, because I always feel like we never like, engineering hits 65% of their budget every year. You know what I mean? That's 35% that's not hit. So I feel like even if we allocate 4 million, we still have 2.79 of stuff not used from our last few years. So I feel like we can find it in this 4.4. I don't want to make my floor increase because of the deputy, because I don't think it has to. I think as a council, we can make that policy ourselves with the same floor. That's all.
Councilmember Green, before you yield, do you want to ask Councilmember O'Donnell if he'd be willing to accept that friendly substitute, or if he wouldn't be willing?
Well, that's what I was asking, is if he would accept the substitute, because it's his motion. So yeah, I mean, if you'd accept it, we make it. If not, we can vote on it and come back at another time.
Captain Boyce, how soon could you have a deputy active if we were to add one for your traffic team?
I'd have to talk to personnel, but I think it'd be relatively quick.
The reason I ask that is twofold. One, every time I've ever asked you if we need deputies, you've always given me a very straight answer. Would I like them? Sure. Need, and this is obviously without the data that that we're talking about. And so I believe you when you say that there is a sincere need for it. Waiting longer, so the sooner we can get people off the streets, and this is kind of what has swayed me, the sooner we can get people off the streets driving drunk or impaired would be my top priority. So I would be open to the friendly amendment and accept it for an additional deputy for our traffic team. So the answer is yes. With the same floor, not changing any of the numbers. That's all. I just wanted to make sure. So, and then city manager, do we have any idea for projected revenue for increase in property tax revenue over the next few years?
I'm looking at my finance director. I think he probably has that at the top of his head.
He's about to shine because I know he's got the answer to this off the top of his head.
He's twitching on the cost for a new deputy right now.
Typically, we'll budget 2 to 3%. Last few years, it's been a little bit higher, obviously, with the sales run-ups related to work from home, that kind of thing. We don't have a future look forward that's been trued up since last year. Don't have the number off the top of my head, but I'd say it's somewhere between 3 and 5%.
Could you put that into hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars for me?
I don't have that off the top of my head. I can research it and get it to council.
I just want to say I'm shocked because you always have these answers. So, you're very good at what you do, so I'm very surprised that you don't, but that's okay. And the reason I bring this up is I would like to bring this back and talk about a secondary deputy, but I want to see funding sources that we could utilize before we allocate any money for it. So those are all my questions. I appreciate this discussion and all the suggestions we've made, so I'm open to listening to the council and what they have to say about my exception or accepting of the friendly amendment.
Deputy Mayor Melendez.
To clarify, Councilmember O'Donnell, did you accept that friendly amendment? I did. Okay. And so at this time, we don't know the funding source of the additional DUI deputy. Is that correct? City Manager?
That's correct.
Okay. So it is out of, it's unusual to me to make a decision without knowing what the funding source is. But because this is a priority to me and responding to DIYs in the community is a priority to me, and our sheriff's captain is offering us what I think is a creative solution to respond to DIYs in the community, I can see myself being supportive of this, but I might have to abstain because I don't know what the funding source is. And that's just a technical point on my end, but I do appreciate this discussion. And so I'm really pondering, as this is a priority, part of me feels that I don't have any concern where the funding comes from because it is a priority to me. But I really do want to practice that fiscal responsibility of always knowing, where our coins are coming from. So I am a bit conflicted on it, but I do appreciate the opportunity.
Mr. Conley, as we opened this conversation with the $2.451 million being unprogrammed. We discussed the fact that it may not be available in the future. Councilmember Green and Councilmember O'Donnell wanted to keep the number at 65%, and we said 4.446 million would be a floor. However, we have the remaining 20% available for what is essentially council priorities. And basically, we're saying this is a council priority. So even though it's not included in the floor, it's absolutely a council priority, would it not be?
At council's discretion every year, yes, it would be.
And if we vote today to express our discretion, are we not doing the same thing?
If you're asking if we can afford the position.
Can the council express
yes, we
its
can afford the
pleasure?
position.
No, can the council make a vote right now to express its
Yes.
preference for the, okay, so we can do that. And so, okay, so we've got a funding source readily identified. Now, city manager, I wouldn't tie your hands and tell you that you have to pull it out of there if that's not the will of the rest of the body. But just so that we're all on clear terms here, you're telling us that 2.451 million remains unprogrammed.
Correct.
And so I'm just suggesting that not constricting your prerogatives.
Understood.
But I'm suggesting that that is a ready source of funding for this.
Understood.
Where you ultimately decide to take the money out of, I'm going to leave it to your able management. But there lies a source of money approximately 10 times the amount required to achieve the desired goal. Does that, Mr. Sylvia, does that make sense in your estimation?
It does, Mayor, and I would add, sitting through a recent sales tax consultant webinar, they were forecasting about a 10% decline statewide in cannabis sales tax. So council is certainly prudent to be concerned about the stability of that revenue, but from my estimation, we did not realize a 10% decline. We still have unaudited numbers. We're slightly over our budget of $6.5 million. I think it's 6.57. So while we did see a decrease from that $7 million figure, it was not $700,000, which would be a 10% decline.
I appreciate that. Let's now go to Councilmember Contreras.
Okay, I think I was the seconder, right? So I don't think that we need to earmark out of the 20% a certain amount. Can someone please clarify the amount of money that it's going to cost for this deputy?
Estimates from the sheriff's captain, startup costs for a new deputy about $420, with annual costs of about $350.
That's a convenient number there.
The numbers that we provided earlier,
right?
that's for one. The numbers that we provided earlier did not have the markup costs of our annual contract or the administrative costs included.
Okay, so $420 to start. Is that like just for the first year?
That's the first year. After that, it's about $350.
Okay, and understanding that these numbers will only ever go up.
Correct.
And how much are they going up by? I think we had an extraordinary contract where it was like 1.5%, like 1.5%.
It's like 4 or 5% over the next 2 years, and then we have a new contract in 28, I believe. Yeah.
That's a lot.
It goes up 3.5%.
3.5, okay.
Each year of this 5-year contract.
Okay, so we are allocating more for all our deputy positions, right? It's not just the cost that we see here, but it's a continual allocation that will increase. I don't ever see it decreasing. I, for one, was never a big fan of utilizing $4 million to just go into the general fund. But I don't think that we need to look at our 20%. I think we have the 350,000 and the 400, well, I guess it'd be the 420,000 right now and then 350 in the future. But I just want the council to understand that this cost will continue to go up. Now, seeing that we finally have information about a specific type of issue that has a specific type of potential solution, I don't know, if there's any stats showing that cities that have this additional deputy have seen a decrease in DUIs. Okay. Seeing no from the captain, there is no supportive data that indicates that if we do fill this position, that we will see a decrease. I can tell you that if we were to put funding towards long-term infrastructure, we would definitely see that decrease. But I'm totally okay with moving forward with the motion as it stands. I don't think it's too out of the ordinary to fill this very specific need. I will say, though, that I need this information much sooner. The fact that I don't have a date as to when this information that we're utilizing to make this decision, I don't know when it's going to come back. I need this to come back ASAP. I need this crash map. I need to be able to have a conversation with my council about real long-term solutions. I know people don't like traffic circles. They certainly stop high-speed chases. So I need all of that very quickly because I don't like to make, when I first got on council, we were facing a potential deficit, and I saw the council not have a problem staring at a deficit and adding another deputy, right? I don't want to operate like that council. Right now, we happen to have gotten a lot more money than anybody anticipated when it comes to cannabis sales tax revenue. But I'm not going to be taking it out of the 20%. I think it's somewhere in the budget. So as soon as we can find out where it's coming from and all this data, I'm going to be happy to see that in my little inbox. But in any case, I'll go ahead and reaffirm my second for this this motion that has been amended. And I look forward to getting a DUI deputy ASAP. And if we could just also get information as to when this position will be filled, that'd be fantastic. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Melendez.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for this discussion. It certainly is a priority to respond to the need to apprehend drunk drivers. And I am confident that our city manager will find the funding. But I want to make it really clear that we do not know what that funding source is yet. So I appreciate the comments about being prudent, about the variability here. That said, I also do support the 20% staying as it is, because although it is a priority for myself and clearly the rest of the council, I believe that this 20% should be used on one-time projects. And that's not specified in here, but I'm wondering if our council and the maker of the motion and the seconder would be opening to a friendly amendment of including a specific line in this policy that states that the 20% goes to one-time projects. It would be helpful to have support from the city manager's office to define what truly is a one-time project rather than a program that's ongoing or personnel with ongoing costs. But I really do think that the value of the cannabis funds could be enhanced by one-time projects so that our council has direction to really reinvest. Future councils have the direction to reinvest these funds back into the community for very likely one-time infrastructure projects that are going to be an investment for generations. So what would you say to that, Councilmember O'Donnell? Would you accept that?
I will accept that, yes.
Okay, and for you, Councilmember Contreras, would you accept that?
I will accept the second friendly amendment.
Okay, great. We've amended this all over the place. And then for you, Councilmember Green, okay, cool. And Mayor, is that something you're open to? Thank you. Okay, well, that'd be my contribution. Thank you.
Councilmember O'Donnell.
Yeah, just real quick, Captain, when you say there's no data, is it you don't have the data, or there is no data to support that?
I don't have the
Okay,
data.
I just wanted to make sure, right? Because those are two different issues
I
right
mean,
there.
logically, enforcement goes up. Yeah. Just like crime drops.
Yeah.
So.
And thank you. And so to the deputy mayor's point, I 100% agree. Like ongoing expenditures, it's particularly in our cannabis revenue, is something that I'm very concerned about. If I didn't sincerely believe that this is a genuine need, I wouldn't even be bringing this on here. But at a time, I'm sure that we can find an alternative funding source for this, so that way perhaps that money can go back into this pool once we can identify that, and then we can also talk about what other deputies we might want to do. So, but yes, I appreciate all the conversation. This has been very enlightening.
Councilmember Green.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. And I just want to thank Councilmember Contreras again for bringing this forward, because without this on our discussion item, yes, sir, what's your question? Sorry, Mr. Sylvia, you have a question?
I just wanted to let the council know that I did locate our current secured property tax.
Of course you did. And what's 5% of that number, Mike?
Our current budget for last year is 15.8 million. So 1%'s 158,000. So I said 3 to 5. So it would definitely cover the cost.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir. Appreciate that. Again, I just wanted to thank Councilmember Contreras for bringing this forward. I didn't even realize that after 4 years of having a cannabis policy, we had no official policy on how we allocate our funding. We just arm wrestle at the end of every year. So like actually having this particular policy, I think is really good. I also want to make sure that the city knows the only funding we earmarked of that $4.466 million as a council is for 2 deputies and 2 park rangers. Okay, so I mean, we're not changing the floor, because we're still giving the city the authorization to use $3.7 million, however they want to use it. So just to make sure that I'm clear on the motion, because I think it's fantastic, and you were absolutely right, that was a gap in there. That's why I wanted you to look at it as where the 20% is. I just want to say, to be allocated by a majority vote of the city council annually for one-time projects. Just put that in right before the parentheses when you make the policy. Walter, you see that on my form here. And then the only thing we're changing up top is 2 park rangers and 2 sheriff's deputies. And then I think that's a good, solid policy to bring back for us to vote on. And as a council, forever we can say, we made sure that there were park rangers. And the truth is, Mayor, I love park rangers, and I've got great feedback from people in the parks, because the park rangers, Mike Pacheco, there you go, buddy, they're creating good community relationships with people who are always visiting the parks, and also some people who probably shouldn't be in the parks. And whether they're law enforcement or not, they are a sense of authority when they represent the city, and they are able to get people to move up and move on. And people that I know, like my daughter and my 2 grandkids who use the parks, have had much better enjoyment of our local parks because of the presence of the park rangers. So I'm really stoked that the council agreed to allocate those funds, and hopefully future councils will keep them. So, and if they get that cool hat, that'd be even better. So with that, thank you so much, council. I'm glad that this worked. Let's vote and go home.
Yeah, we have a motion, a second. Please cast your votes. And as we do, I'll just, as we go ahead and cast our votes, I just want to say, I appreciate you bringing the park rangers. You're absolutely right. They're a great addition to our city. And I will always continue to support them. What happened to why don't I have a... I don't have a yes or no. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Aye. The record will reflect that vote is approved unanimously. Okay, with that, we can now go to comments from staff. Our city clerk, deputy city clerk, have any comments this evening? City attorney, anything for us? City manager.
Very briefly, Mayor, the city's excited to participate in this Sunday's Fiestas Patriots event at 1234 North Santa Fe from 12 to 4 p.m. We'll have a city booth, and the fire department will also be present. This special event, produced by the Vista Chamber of Commerce, promises a vibrant celebration of Hispanic heritage and culture in Vista. For more information, visit vistachamber.org. And the final show of Moonlight Amphitheater's summer season, Tootsie, opens tomorrow night and runs through September 28th. Be sure to catch the city's own Steve Glaudini and the cast. For more details, visit moonlightstage.com. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember O'Donnell.
Yes, thank you for public discussion. Thank you, the council, for this discussion this evening. Just real quick, Cal Cities, we had our City Pack event on Friday at the Padres game, so that was very good to just see other neighboring cities and communities that were out and being able to discuss some of the things that were taking place. I want to congratulate our neighboring council member, Maria Nunez from San Marcos, for being elected president of the club or the organization. And then just at the most recent meeting, there was a few discussions regarding the Tijuana River Valley, just continuing trying to put pressure on the governor and the federal agencies to try and provide funding to get that cleaned up. A few other things were brought in there, nothing really of note though. And then, as always, thank you to my wife for allowing me to be here. I really did enjoy this early end to our council meeting, and I'm looking forward to seeing her. I love you, honey, and I love our son, Caleb, and you all have a good night.
Awesome. We ended early, and we didn't even need a 5-minute timer. I really appreciate my council. I appreciate staff. We have done so much work. I think that we have one of the most active councils that the city has ever had, and it's active in such a positive way, from our mayor to our deputy mayor to all of us down here. I know that we are super active in our community. I know that we're super active with staff, maybe sometimes a little annoying with staff, so hopefully, we treat you all good, because you deserve it. But our city is just leaps and bounds ahead of all the other cities. And for being 19 square miles with 100,000 people, we are doing a damn good job. And it's not just us up here, it's everybody over there, it's our residents, our citizens that come forward and give us recommendations and want to see different, changes in our city that are going to help us build more community. So just thank you to everybody. Please tell your friends to keep coming to city council meetings and watching us and participating via Zoom if they can't make it. The community voice is a critical component of moving really good policy forward. And when we move things forward, if we need to readjust, I want to hear it from the public that, hey, something needs to change a little bit here. It's not getting to the the suggested solution, but that's where the back and forth needs to happen. Outside of that, I have not had an NCTD meeting, so I don't really have too much to say. It looks like we were going to have one in September, but we're actually just going to move it to October. But I hope everybody, if you haven't had a chance to ride the Breeze Bus, the Sprinter, the Coaster, take the opportunity to do that. And I want to remind you that there's this great NCTD Plus pilot happening in San Marcos, and it's going to be coming to Vista next year. And it's just fantastic. So I can't wait to have a ribbon cutting for that, because it's going to really help people with the first and last mile issue. But everybody have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Captain Boyce, for giving us all that information on law enforcement. I see you out there dealing with a citizen, so good job just doing extra work. Also, Mr. Mike Sylvia, props to you and your numbers. Really appreciate your brain and the fact that you figured out property taxes while just hanging out. And also, I'm assuming you are the generator of the Excel spreadsheet with cannabis spending, or whoever was. Thank you for that. I love Excel spreadsheets. So Mike Sylvia, that's good. Also, one person that I don't get to thank enough, Clarence Rich, okay? Clarence Rich is part of our code department. He is a smiley face. You guys can thank him. But Clarence Rich is in charge of code enforcement. A lot of times he's the face of our city, and you see him when you're out there breaking rules and things like that. But the truth is, Clarence has the nicest heart and is the hardest working man and loves the city of Vista and really approaches this job as if we are all family, and he's just trying to keep us on the straight and narrow. So seeing Clarence here today just kind of reminded me of what an asset he is to our community. And code enforcement, for the record, is one of the only departments in the black in the city of Vista. Vista. Everybody else costs me money. So Clarence, keep writing citations. Thanks for all you do and enforcing our code. Really appreciate it. I also love my wife and thank her for allowing me to be here tonight. And there's a group that meets in District 1 every Wednesday, Guerreras en Acción por un Vista Limpio. And you can be there at 9 o'clock every Wednesday at Luz Duran Park. Karina forgot to tell you this week, so Coach got you, all right? Go hang out with our people down at Luz Duran Park, 9 a.m. on Wednesday. Thanks, Council. You're amazing.
Hear, hear. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. This was a great discussion, and I just want to say thank you to our city staff. I continue to be impressed by all of you. Everyone is so talented and excellent, and I just have so much confidence in our staff. You really are incredible public servants, so thank you. And the small update that I have, I always want to plug our upcoming events. I'm really excited about Cyclovia happening on September 29th. That's a Sunday from 10 to 2. It's an all-wheels cycleway event. So bring your bicycles, your skateboards, your roller skates, your strollers, all wheels, and there will be some educational information for folks, but there will also be a lot of fun. I want to emphasize that this is going to be fun, and we're going to shut down Main Street, and we're just going to have a whole load of fun just on the street. So please come out. It's going to be a lot of fun. That's on September 29th, a couple Sundays from now, and I hope to see you there.
The city has two opportunities for residents to get involved and make a difference in Vista. On September 18th, join us for the first session of our Community Emergency Response Team, or CERT, training from 6 to 8 p.m. at the Civic Center. This training will equip participants with vital emergency skills to help protect their families and neighbors. Then on September 21st, join us for the Coastal Cleanup Day from 9 a.m. to noon at the Buena Vista Creek Trail. Let's join volunteers worldwide in cleaning up our environment. Visit the city calendar at vista.gov for more information or to register. And thank you to my beautiful wife, Shauna, for allowing me to serve. And thank you to all of your families for allowing you to serve, because I will say on behalf of all of us, this is time away from our families, and they are very kind to allow us to do this. So thank you all to your families and to the families of our staff for all of the sacrifices that they make. Thank you. Have a good night. We're adjourned.